Welcome to another episode of Wrestling Reactions. This time I'm reacting to Cultaholic, 10 best non-title matches in WWE WrestleMania history. Again from Cultaholic. Adam Pacitti is announcing. These guys, check their site out, man. They used to do another site before this where they all got sort of fired for some super political crap. Cultaholic Wrestling is one of the best wrestling sites out there. So let's get going.
Championship in WWE is a great honor. Fighting at WrestleMania is a great honor. Combine the two and you get something so honorable it would make a Knight of the Crusade weep with happiness. Not everything is about the shiny belts though, as the show of shows has given us some great matches with nothing on the line except pride. Okay, so that's not strictly speaking true. Some of these matches did have stakes involved, but they weren't championships, so get off our backs and enjoy the countdown, alright? I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic Wrestling, and these are the 10 greatest non-title matches in WrestleMania history. Join us. Number 10, Bray Wyatt versus John Cena at WrestleMania 36, Night 2. We might be getting off to a controversial...
Okay, so let me say before they talk about their version of the match. The match itself, yes, it was a great match. There's no contesting on that. I mean, John Cena, when he's with someone he wants to work with, like Bray Wyatt, who he wants to work with the guy, and Bray Wyatt, you know, he's they can put on great matches. There's no doubt about that. The problem is, essentially, Bray Wyatt is a dead character as long as anytime Vince McMahon is running the show, which for WrestleMania 36 he was, and WrestleMania 39 he was. He's just a dead character. Because you go into it knowing that you're going to watch one of his matches, and he'll win the match but go nowhere. He'll get a push, you know. And Cena's basically a retired veteran wrestler who puts over younger wrestlers at this point in his career. So if you're gonna use his pushes, obviously he came back to wrestle Bray Wyatt because he wants to help the guy out, and make some money. But there's no point to it if you're Vince or anyone. Why bother? I mean, because you're not giving Bray the push.
Controversial start with this one, as some would say that the Firefly Funhouse match wasn't actually a match at all. But hey, if WWE can count it, then so can we. Also, it was absolutely spectacular. 6 years after John Cena halted Bray Wyatt's momentum by beating him at WrestleMania 30, the two men...
Yes, that was another stupid thing. For some, they jobbed Bray Wyatt out to WrestleMania to Cena way back at WrestleMania 30.
Squared off again in front of, well, nobody. This was, of course, right at the start of the pandemic, aka the really bad times. WWE made the best out of this crappy situation by giving Bray the creative keys to this match. He was able to construct a trippy...
That blinking, by the way, is in their video. So something is wrong with their video, not anything on my setup. When you see that periodic black screen blink.
Psychedelic tour through Cena's past, which included highlighting some of the more questionable things the character had ever done. He took shots at Cena's perceived crushing of up-and-coming talent, his backstage privilege, and his supposed part in driving away so many people from wrestling. This was WWE's equivalent of an art house film, a complex character study on one of the most controversial figures in the company's history. Was it a wrestling match in the traditional sense? Not at all. Nope. Was it a divisive stroke of genius? I think so. Number 9, Shane McMahon.
But if you're gonna do it, like I said before, you gotta have Bray get a push after it. He never did.
And versus Vince McMahon at WrestleMania X7.
Because every match sets up the next match. That's always got to be the you know.
Stick with me here, we will get to some proper matches with proper wrestlers in them soon, I promise. Despite not being actual wrestlers, and despite Vince being in his mid-50s at the time, this father-son clash from WrestleMania X7 is an all-time classic. Mr. McMahon was making his family's life a
Shane is a better wrestler than most, well, at his best. Shane was a better wrestler than most of the talent.
Living hell in 2001. He had drugged his wife, taken on Trish Stratus as his mistress, and put his poor daughter Stephanie through several lifetimes of abuse in the space of a few months.
And I might add, this was the time period when Vince was seriously trying to push the story that Vince would be the father to Stephanie's baby. Yes.
Stepping up to take his dad to task and put his tyranny to an end was new WCW owner Shane McMahon, who challenged his father to a street fight at WrestleMania. With more smoke and mirrors than a glass factory on fire, the McMahon boys put on a soap opera spectacle for the ages. Interference, betrayals, trash cans, this match had it all. In the end, Shane got revenge for his family by beating his old man to a thunderous ovation. This match is the absolute pinnacle of the sports entertainment philosophy, and everybody loved it. Don't believe me? Just listen to that Road Warrior pop when Linda gets out of her chair. Number 8, the Money in the Bank ladder match at WrestleMania 21. Alright, you can all come out now, we've got some actual wrestling for you, Killjoys. For 5 years, the Money in the Bank ladder match had its home at WrestleMania. From 2005 to 2010, anywhere between 6 and 10 wrestlers battled.
That is another stupid thing, okay? Money in the Bank should have been a match at another event like WrestleMania. Hell in a Cell should be a match that happens once in a while. They should not be their own pay-per-views, okay? You dilute the awesomeness of the event when you have them as pay-per-views. Like, you know.
Battled it out to retrieve a briefcase that would guarantee them a world championship match at any point within a year. Whilst all these matches are special in their own way, we had to give this spot on the list to the one that started it all. Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, Christian, Kane, Edge and Shelton Benjamin were the guinea pigs for this experiment, and they all played their parts to a T. The match more than lived up to its hype, delivering on all of its potential for action and drama. Suplexes off ladders, choke slams off ladders, Shelton Benjamin breaking physics to run up a ladder and clothesline Jericho. These are just some of the memorable spots that made this human car wreck so much fun to witness. Edge would be the first man to grab the famous briefcase, but all 6 of the competitors made history on this night. A tremendous start for what is now one of WWE's signature matches. Number 7.
So, in that match, Chris Benoit goes to the ladder. If I remember the match correctly, he climbs up to the top of the ladder, right? And Chris Benoit does a flying headbutt. I was about to say a flying headbutt. A flying headbutt where he jumps in, like I always call it the Benoit bomb, because he drops like a bomb and lands on his head on the other wrestler. Like, it's not like a flip or anything. He just falls over like a guy who have a diving board. And in this case, I think it was a botch because he missed and he seemed to legitimately knock himself out for about 10 to 20 seconds. He just laid there. Like, I don't know if he sold it that way or whatever, but he clearly missed. And he did not look like he was faking being unconscious briefly.
The Ultimate Warrior versus Randy Savage at WrestleMania 7. At WrestleMania 3, Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat put on one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time for the Intercontinental title. At WrestleMania 6, the Ultimate Warrior's battle with Hulk Hogan became one of the most iconic main events in the show's history. Put these two together and what do you get? Well, lots of performance-enhancing drugs and crazed shouting, but also another match for the ages. This all started when the Macho King cost Warrior his WWE title at the Royal Rumble. The two megastars would face off at Mania 7 with each man's career on the line. After a dramatic back and forth that included Warrior kicking out of 5 consecutive flying elbows, the Ultimate One put Macho down and forced him to retire. The drama only ramped up when Queen Sherry attacked her former charge, only for Miss Elizabeth to rush to the ring and save her estranged husband from a kicking. In that moment, we were all that one fan wearing the hat and glasses. You know the one. A great mix of in-ring performance and storyline emotion. This match is so good that it doesn't even matter that Savage's retirement only lasted a couple of months. Number 6, Shawn Michaels versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24. Speaking of not staying retired, in late 2007, Vince McMahon announced that the next singles match Ric Flair lost would be his last. The Nature Boy rode his luck all the way to WrestleMania 24, where he shared the ring with Shawn Michaels. HBK and Slick Rick put on a masterclass in audience manipulation. Everyone knew that this would be Flair's swan song, as there was no way he could conceivably beat Michaels. But in the magical way that only wrestling can provide, these two made you believe. Every near fall was a heart stopper, every comeback a bolt of electricity, and that iconic shot of Michaels mouthing, "I'm sorry, I love you," before putting Flair away is enough to send shivers down your spine. Despite Despite being nearly 60, Flair put in an all-time great performance in this match. He even hit something off the top rope, for goodness sake. He never did that. Sure, there are better worked bouts out there, but in terms of a special feeling surrounding a match, there aren't many that can touch this one. And you know what? If we forgave Savage for breaking his retirement, I suppose we have to forgive Rick too. Number 5.
Yeah, that was a match. See, like, there are a lot of wrestling matches where it's just the in-the-ring wrestling, which is a great show and you can be entertained, you know. Like Dean Malenko and Eddie Guerrero in ECW is a legendary match, for example, like that. But this match wasn't based so much on the wrestling day in the ring, which was top-notch. It was two veteran wrestlers who were both older, especially in Flair's case, but both still in good shape, who knew how to put one over and carry each other and protect each other and entertain, but they knew how to tell a story. And that is the wrestling at its best when you're telling a story in the ring. And this is a story with a conclusion. Fine. He wrestled on and off again for years, but you know, it did feel like a conclusion, you know. And Shawn Michaels, in his second part of like the first part of his career, he was in the '90s. He was horrible at storytelling. You know, that's why a lot of guys didn't like to work with him, and not the only reason, but he just didn't commit to the storytelling. The second part of his career, like after this, he wrestled Undertaker twice, for example. Two great storytelling matches that are also great matches. Like he's a master storyteller, and it really shows.
5. The Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18. Neither The Rock nor Hulk Hogan were ever regarded as the best technical wrestlers on the planet, but what they were great at was holding a crowd in the palm of their hand. And on this night in Toronto, that is exactly what they did. After the Hulkster made his triumphant WWE return as part of the NWO, fans were chomping at the bit to see a dream match between him and Stone Cold Steve Austin. That never happened, but this was as good, if not a little better. Despite being a dastardly heel, the fans refused to boo the returning Hogan. They booed The Rock instead. The Rock, that's like booing a very charismatic puppy. This unique dynamic led to some of the most insane crowd noises in wrestling history. Everything these two men did garnered a seismic reaction from the fans as the Mania 18 crowd ramped up towards fever pitch. This match was so bloody good that Hogan was forced to turn babyface on the spot, fighting off Hall and Nash to stand tall with The Rock. Of course, this did inadvertently lead to him winning the WWE Championship a month later, but we weren't to know that at the time. Number 4.
Yeah, that was a special match. Like, and a lot of that was on the fly, because most of the time Vince will ignore the crowd and ignore the movements. But when it comes to certain wrestlers, and say what you want about like Vince and other. Like, there are certain guys who, when you do business with Vince and understand his business, like The Undertaker, who's been loyal to Vince, Hogan when he signed with Vince, and so forth, that Vince will do right by you. The Rock is like that, you know. Like, he understands when you're a big guy, you know, and they saw what was happening with the crowd, that there was no way for The Rock to win that match effectively as the face and Hogan heel out, because the crowd was going to root for Hogan no matter what he did. Okay. And the word I heard is that The Rock himself sent word to the back for the changes to make Hogan go babyface. That he said, he was like, I'm paraphrasing, Hulk, man, you got to go babyface in this one. We're going to wrestle and then have the whole Nash run out there. You do the switch, and then we'll have a face-to-face respect match after that, for the rest of it. You know, and that was, I mean, me paraphrasing, but that was the word I heard, that The Rock himself was the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, that Vince signed off on. Okay, what Hogan do, we'll rewrite this on the fly. And at the end of it, when The Rock and Hogan are posing off, and Rock is putting Hogan over with the pose offs, it's just again, this is the case where the match itself was really good, but the story was made it an amazing match.
Owen Hart versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 10. After 2 matches that were all about emotion, let's get stuck into some good old-fashioned wrestling, shall we? The 10th edition of the Showcase of the Immortals featured 2 scheduled WWE Championship matches. Yokozuna retained over Lex Luger before falling to Bret Hart in the main event to crown the Hitman champion once again. However, it's not like Hart was going into this match fresh, as he had opened the show in an absolute barn burner against his younger brother Owen. After coming to blows at Survivor Series, the 2 siblings looked to be on the same page until Owen did the unthinkable and kicked Bret's leg out of his leg at the Royal Rumble. At Mania, these 2 masters of their craft put on a technical showcase like no other. To just list all the spots would do this match a serious disservice, but just look at the people involved. Let's just say it wasn't all tests of strength and back rakes. The younger Hart actually pinned his more accomplished brother to not only score an upset victory, but also to set up a scintillating stare down at the end of the night as Bret celebrated with the gold. Actually, maybe there was some emotion here after all. Number 3.
Yeah, that was Owen's coming out match, so to speak, where he went over as basically by Bret putting him over there, established Owen as a top level technical wrestler, with his angry gimmick, so to speak. So that was Owen kind of hitting the top right there.
Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 21. When it comes to the perfect mixture of in-ring ability, promo skills, and physical storytelling, there aren't many wrestlers that can match up to Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels. One was a traditional grappler with Olympic experience, whilst the other was a flashy showman who some thought favored style over substance. Yeah. All this helped make their clash at WrestleMania 21 one of the most intriguing and greatest Mania matches of all time. Angle kept trying to beat Michaels with his technical mastery, but Shawn did what he did best and frustrated him. He kept finding new ways to get out of Angle's moves, throwing in his own amateur wrestling to annoy the Olympic gold medalist even more. Word of advice, Shawn, don't piss off a man who could snap your foot clean off if he wanted to. The wrestling machine finally put the showstopper down with a vicious ankle lock after almost half an hour of wrestling heaven. These 2 men could pull magic out of thin air, so it's no surprise that they excelled when put together. Also, this feud gave us Sexy Kurt, which is enough to get it on this list on its own. Number 2, Bret Hart versus Stone Cold.
Okay, so I wasn't overly impressed by Kurt Angle. It was a great match from a technical point of view, but the story was boring to me. So.
Steve Austin at WrestleMania 13. The build-up to WrestleMania 13 was all over the place. First, Shawn Michaels was champion, then Bret Hart, then Sid. Austin won the Royal Rumble, but because he cheated, The Undertaker took his place in the main event. Thankfully, out of all this carnage came the grudge match to end all grudge matches. Yeah. Hart went into this match as the embodiment of the company's past, clean-cut, respectful, and humble. As for Austin, he was the total antithesis of those things and a sign of things to come in wrestling's future. To settle their differences, these 2 titans met in an I Quit match officiated by Ken Shamrock and his tiny little shorts. After some of the most intense fighting WWE fans had ever seen, the match ended with one of the all-time great closing spots. A bloodied Austin was locked deep into Bret's sharpshooter as the Canadian demanded that the Texan give up. Defiant as always, Austin chose to pass out from the pain, cementing himself as a megastar in the process. A great wrestling match is one thing, but one that changes the entire course of the industry, that is something special. Number 1.
So, yeah, that match deserves credit for it. I mean, back then, WrestleMania 12 would have been early 90s, if I remember correctly, just when Stone Cold came back. WWE was building and becoming the modern WWE. You know, like the 80s was great. Then they had a decline in the late 80s. You know, the WCW had its run early 90s, and then ECW came along and sort of kickstarted the industry to with the level of what the wrestlers are capable of doing. And then finally Vince put it all together with and this was the starting point of it.
The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25 and 26.
Yep.
Alright, we couldn't pick between the two, but you know what? We shouldn't have to. When The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels met at WrestleMania 25, they put on what many still consider to be the single greatest match in the show's history, non-title or otherwise. Even after half an hour of breathtaking spots and masterful storytelling, the tale was not over though. 1 year later, after months of obsessively trying to get Taker to agree to a rematch, HBK battled and lost to the dead man, ending his career in the process. These matches are like takeaway pizza and shoddy garlic dip. You cannot have one without the other. There's so much context that you need to have seen both in order to fully understand them. In actual fact, there's about a dozen other matches and moments that you need to see to get the full story. Classic moments, a legendary storyline, and an intangible feeling of greatness sitting across them. There was just no separating the two Taker Michaels Mania matches, so they're both our number one.
So, my number one match of this type would have been Mick Foley and Undertaker in Hell in a Cell, which was the second Hell in a Cell match. That is the best non-title match ever. Okay, now maybe they were doing non-gimmick matches on this list. I don't know, but they had Money in the Bank, so it couldn't be a gimmick anyway. But that is the best non-title match of all time. The storylines and the wrestling and the sort of what the freak factor combined perfectly for that one. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. If you enjoyed this wrestling video, like, subscribe, share if you like it. Leave a comment down below if you have something to say about it. What were your favorite non-title wrestling matches? Maybe I'll do a video on those. They're all online now. That's the video, and I am out of here.